graciously, Jimmy came to tell you about what he does and answer some questions and hopefully have a lot of fun along the way. How's that for an introduction?
That sounds great. I can obviously talk about myself too. I did bring some sticker packs for all you peoples. And then they're all weather stickers, so you can put them on your car, water bottle, cooler, anything like that. There you go. And definitely, I'll obviously talk about, kind of a little bit of my path. I definitely want you guys to ask questions. I went to college as well for art, so I kind of got the same path. Any questions you have to do right after college or anything like that, you can ask me. But, so my name is Jimmy Bryant. I grew up on a small farm in South Dakota, so I didn't have a lot of exposure to art or creative stuff. It was also the 90s when I grew up there, so a little different world than it is now. No internet, didn't have cable, so really my only introduction to art was comic books, Simpsons. That was kind of it. I had a friend, his dad was a sculptor, actually, who lived in the country. So that was a little bit of a lucky placement, having that in my life, being able to experience being creative and seeing somebody actually be successful being creative. Now, I think it's a lot easier with the internet, obviously, social media, everything. You can find a million different people being successful, creative people, no matter what your field is. So back then, it was a little harder to imagine, like, what am I going to do when I graduate? Because there really wasn't a path. I thought I was going to draw comic books because that was my only exposure. Then I came to Denver, Colorado for college. It's called Rocky Mountain College where I died. That's where I went. It was a different college when I went there in 2000. It was a tiny little college. It was 2 office buildings. Now it has a big campus and everything. I'm pretty sure I helped pay for that. So went there, learned a lot of different things. It was early on digital art. It definitely wasn't like it is now. We didn't even have tablets or anything. So learned a little bit of digital art there. I was still doing a lot of hand-drawn art. I always loved comics, drawing cartoons, stuff like that. I didn't really know like any other thing to do with art until I went to college, and they're like, oh, you can do editorial illustration, or you can do for magazines, you can do a whole bunch of different ideas. Even graphic design, like working for another person, graphic design, like I didn't even know that was an option. So those were, my specialty was illustration, because I wanted to do editorial illustration. I kind of thought that was going to be the path that I took. Graduated college, kind of got thrown out into quote-unquote real world, and I didn't really know what to do. It was early 2000s, so I just started emailing people. I did have a website made in Dreamweaver. I don't know if anybody here is made a website in Dreamweaver. So I just started emailing people and sending them to my website, and I did eventually get a few editorial illustration jobs for magazines, newspapers. Wasn't life-changing money by any means. A lot of times when you start out, you kind of take on projects to get the experience and learn kind of the process and what you should charge. And everybody charges different. Unfortunately, in this industry, there's no standard. Everybody kind of makes up their own charge amount, which is definitely a little difficult when you start. It's also difficult when you start because people, sometimes they can tell by your portfolio, or you tell them that you're beginning, and they kind of expect for you to work for less. I think when you're starting out, and you really shouldn't worry about that part. You should really worry about getting the experience of working for somebody and creating something. Now, if you can get paid, and you can get paid correctly, you have a nice website and a nice portfolio, so, go right ahead and do it. That's what you should do. You should always get paid when you can, but don't be afraid when you're starting out to do the free projects or offer your services to something you see that you're interested in, and you can connect with those people and be like, hey, check out my portfolio, let me design this website, or let me do these illustrations, or offer your services to get that experience. That's kind of how I started. I just didn't know what to do. I tried the editorial illustration thing. I had a regular job this whole time. I didn't do illustration full time. I was working in the construction industry, so I would, work 9 to 5, come home, and start working on illustration, start emailing people. Back then, I would just get a magazine, look for the art director's email, and send an email. Now, the easiest thing to do to find people's email addresses is to look for salespeople's addresses, because salespeople are like, they're putting their information out there. They want people to connect with them. And so you find that salesperson's address, and you can find kind of how the emails are laid out. And like some people, it's their last name. Some people, it's their name dot their last name. And once you figure out the kind of how the email's laid out, then you can go on LinkedIn and find out who the person is you want to connect, and you know how to plug their name into that. And then you can email them. Now you don't want to spam people. If it's something you're really interested in, you want to write an email kind of offering a service or just saying that you want to connect, and then just linking them to your website. I heard you talking about websites. You guys, if you want to do something, I don't know what's your creative direction? What are you working on? What do you want to do?
Animation.
What about you?
In the same boat.
Okay, what about you?
UX, web design.
Okay, cool.
Graphic design.
Animation, motion
Don't know yet.
design.
Graphic design.
Okay, so everybody here should have a website. That's the most important thing. You're gonna you either need a website, an Instagram, or a TikTok if you guys are doing that. TikTok, so a good way to reach out to people. I know some people think it's crazy. So you definitely need a solid website. I don't know what kind of projects you have, but as far as when I got out of college, I had my senior portfolio projects from college that I had on my website. But this day and age, you guys have access to way more information. You can even, I would suggest starting on things that you enjoy and creating that and putting that on your website. It's going to be way more relatable. People are going to see that you actually love what you're working on. So I would try to create your own projects on the side. Don't be afraid about if it doesn't turn out how you want. Don't be afraid when you get out the kind of level that you're at. Like you're gonna, if you keep practicing and you keep creating, you keep drawing or whatever your I don't know whatever your direction is. You're gonna get better. You're gonna look back at your work in 5 years and be like, "Ooh!" I look back at work that I thought was awesome, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm embarrassed," So that's just kind of how it works when you're doing creative stuff. You're not ever gonna stop getting better or creating or changing or finding different ways. It's just kind of how it is when you're creating things. So just do your work, do your best job, and then put that out there on your website. And I think even if it's a self-initiated project, if it's something that you're passionate about and it's well-rounded, like having that on your website, I think is better than I designed a fake logo in my class for whatever project. Unless it's really awesome, then put that on there. But so that's what I would suggest when you first get out of college, or even before. Especially now, it's so easy to make websites. So after college, I did that, and then we moved to San Francisco. Oakland, I lived in Oakland, worked in San Francisco, and I was just, that was a whole different, putting myself in a whole different, I grew up on a farm, moved to Denver, that's a different style of life, and then moving out there is a whole different city life, influences, I remember the whole time I lived in Denver, here we drive everywhere, San Francisco, Oakland, people are walking around everywhere, so I remember the first, time, moving there, I get out, and my neighbor is out there painting a mural on the stairs that go down to the grocery store, and I'm just I still know that guy now, and it's just different influences out there, and I just got introduced to designing t-shirts for bands, so I kind of found a direction a little bit. That's always hard too. It's what direction do I want to go in, finding a niche, and all I can say about that is that's going to be trial and error. Don't be afraid to try a direction. If it fails, it doesn't work, that's fine. Find something else. You're going to try a bunch of different things. I tried, when Etsy first started, if you don't know what that is, I'm sure you guys do, but you can sell your artwork on there, whatever you make. When Etsy first started, I would go to Target, I would buy blank purses, canvas purses, and I would paint on them and sell them on Etsy. I was just trying all different sorts of directions with my art because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So then I was in California. I was able to start doing band merch design, which gave me a little bit of a direction. Previously, before that, while I was doing that, I was hand drawing everything and scanning it in on a flatbed scanner and correcting it all in Photoshop. Obviously, now you can just draw directly in the computer. So I was doing that for a while, and I started getting work. Band merchandise it's okay. It's a hard path because it's a lot of like so many people are like it's their favorite band. Like I like music and I enjoy music. It's not like the biggest passion of my life, and a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of you, like it's the biggest thing in their life, and it makes them so passionate. So you're like having to go up against artists who like this is their favorite band in the world, whereas like I'm trying to do this to get a paycheck so I can live and not work regular 9 to 5 or supplement my 9 to 5 at that point. So it gets a little hard because a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll just do it for free because it's their favorite band in the world. So I did that for many years in the background. Like I was working in the construction industry at that point, rental construction. I was delivering construction equipment every day. When I moved out to San Francisco, like I had to get up at 4 in the morning and I wouldn't get home until like 6 at night. So my time to do stuff for myself was very small, but I was young, in my 20s, early 20s, like, you know, you can probably sleep 2 or 3 hours and you're fine. So I would just stay up all night, create products, draw my own stuff, and email people. That was probably around when Instagram started, so I started posting on that. I didn't really know what to do. And then we moved back here to Colorado, and I actually finally got a position where I was doing, I was an art director. I was really helping with production at this company where we created products for other people, which was something I hadn't really thought about either. So I got to see at this company, we created products like, you know, everything, t-shirts, drinkware, whatever you can imagine. We would do custom designs or we would do their logos. And I was just like, okay, like what are we doing here? Like I've worked here for like 3 years. I'm creating stuff for other people. Like why don't I create for myself again? You know, like get more focused on that. Because like I could see that you could make these products and sell them. And so I really focused. I actually started listening to it's a podcast called Adventures in Design. It's a little different now than how it was in the beginning. If you want, you could probably go back and listen to the first 300 or 400 episodes. It's all about creating your own thing, going to markets, selling your own products. And I think the biggest thing like to get from that is like there's these ways that you think is how you get to success, and like how people think these like, oh, you do this, and then you get to this one spot. But actually, as you're going to find out in any creative career, it's a spider web. It's going to be it's not a linear path. You're going to go here, then you go back, and you're going to go back. You know, it's not a 1, 2, 3 step. Maybe if you go work at a company, then it's kind of a little like, well, you start at the beginning designer, then you're a junior, then maybe you're an assistant art director, then maybe an art, whatever, like that's a little more linear. But if you're trying to kind of do your own thing, it's definitely, there's no linear path. It's all over the place. So I learned a lot about making my own products, and then I started actually doing like farmers markets in Denver. So every weekend in Denver, there's like probably 5 to 10 to 15 different styles of like markets to do. Whether it's a farmer's market, since it's a big city, there's all kinds of different events, like places where people go to try beer and they have events. So like I got some products made, and I had that knowledge from where I worked. I had my own products made, and then I went like one weekend and like I sold, I think it was like $500 or $800 at my first event on that weekend. And for me at the time, like I was just like, that's like half my, like half of it. I'm like, okay, this is. I didn't even know like people wanted my work because I've been doing like freelance design my whole life, and it's really directed. And I didn't really have like a specific style, so I was kind of doing whatever I had to do to get a job or get paid. So when I did that market, like I saw that people like actually wanted to buy my product, so I was like able to go like focus 100% on that. Because I was like, okay, if I can make that on a weekend, like if I can do this every weekend, then I can quit my job. So I started working towards that. Now, I didn't quit my job right away. I had done that one time previously, and I did not prepare. I do not suggest just jump. Well, maybe when you're young, you can just jump into it. I was probably in my early 30s at that point. And I had just jumped into it one time. Didn't prepare, didn't do any savings, failed miserably, ended living back home with my parents at 32. That's not fun. So definitely if you want to work on your own, there's a few different ways. Save up some money so you at least have 6 months worth of rent, because the hardest thing to do working on your own is to not have that safety net, because then you're taking every job. You're just like, I need money, I gotta live, And then you don't get to be selective, and then you're doing projects that don't help you advance you in the future. So if you're doing all these projects that just get you paid, that's great. You need money to live. We all need money to live. But you want to do projects that actually advance your career, where somebody looks at that project and goes, oh, hey, I want to hire them to do that for that specific thing. You don't just want to be a cog in the wheel. You want to stand out and people seek you out for your thing. So I guess I'm getting lost where I was at there. So I started doing those markets, and then obviously Instagram was really popular right then. The algorithm was different. It was, you could just post something and people could actually find it. So I did a project where I posted a design every day for a year, and that really helped me grow at that time. Got me a lot more freelance work. And then in order to quit the job I was at, I went on Craigslist. I don't know if people still use that to find jobs these days. And I found a job at a soda factory where they needed an art director. And I worked with them, be like, hey, you pay me X amount of money, I'll work here 4 days in the month. And my biggest thing with that was finding a utility client that would pay my rent, because I knew at that time, if I could pay my rent, I can kind of push off all the other bills. You can kind of ignore that stuff for a while. And I knew if my rent was paid, I would be able to take on projects and do the projects I wanted, and not have to take on any project that I had to come in and make money, which would get the right type of people to come look at your work that you want to hire you for those things. So then, while I was able to do that, and then at my regular job, I was like, hey, can I work part-time? So I did that. I went to 4 days a week. And then I was like, started making more money on the weekends with markets. And then I was like, hey, can I work 3 days a week? And I'm like, okay, which, a lot of jobs probably won't do that, but it's worth asking. And eventually I was able to just quit that job and then focus 100% on my artwork. So now, at those markets, I met a person who worked at REI. If you don't know, I'm sure everybody here probably knows, since you're in Colorado. REI is an outdoor store. They're all across the United States. And that was kind of my first big shot that helped the company kind of grow to where it is now. I had to go up there and present to REI. I'm kind of a simple guy. This is what I don't dress up. This is just what I wear every day. Walked in there with 2 Ziploc bags of my products, put them on the table, and then we just talked it out. So after that, it took about a year's worth of talking. I still lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. The 1 bedroom was where I kind of ran everything out of on the 5th floor. It sucked hauling tents and tables and all the product up and down. But kind of after a year back and forth, initially they were like, hey, we want to test out your products locally or whatever. And I was like, okay, awesome. And then probably another month they called back and like, well, we want to release you into every location in the United States. And I'm just standing in my 2-bedroom apartment, they're like, can you do that? And obviously, that's a big risk to take, but they're not going to ask me twice. So I'm like, yes, I can do that, So obviously I had no idea what I was doing at that point, so I had to figure it out. But that was kind of what helped me get into where we are today, where we have a 3,000 square foot warehouse. We're selling wholesale all across the United States. We have 7 employees, 8 employees. And that's kind of what made the building blocks of getting to where we are now, where I don't really do any freelance design. I just work for myself. I just create things that I like. And then we send them out to our sales reps. We do trade shows where buyers will come in from all across the United States. We're kind of in the resort wear industry. And then buyers from all over the United States, different, large, things where we're in national parks to small mom and pop locations that are all over. They all come there, buy our products, look at our booths, and that's kind of how we're growing and where we're at right now. Do you guys have any questions? Hope you do.
How was your interaction with REI? Can you go more into detail about?
Yeah, I can definitely go into. So so they originally, I met a person at a market. He actually just worked at a store. He wasn't even the manager or anything. He talked to his manager, and then his manager talked to their area manager, and then their area manager talked to the people up in Kent, Washington, is where their actual store is at. And then they reached out to me And they don't have this program now. They used to have to go through this program. It was called the I can't remember what it's called. But you had to go through this program where I had to create a video. You can actually see it on my YouTube. It's a terrible video. I filmed it on my phone. I edited it on my phone. It's a terrible video, but it worked. Sent that video to them. If they accept your video, then you get invited. It's called the Innovator Series is what it was. Then you get invited to go up to Kent, Washington, and you have to go there and present your products. They were interested in stickers and keychains initially. And I had to sit there in the room, and they basically just kind of looked at it. There was 4 people. They looked at everything. They asked me a bunch of questions about what am I able to do and all, and not necessarily say lying, but when you're in a situation like that, you just agree and you figure it out afterwards because if you say no in a situation like that, like they're just gonna be like, okay, they're gonna move on. They have 1,000 other people that want to sell their products, so take the risk if that's what you want to do. And then, like I said, it took about a year after that. I'm just going back and forth. Getting the system set up and getting the packaging, like that's all stuff I didn't even know what I had to do. Like I had to get packaging for my stickers. I had to figure out how to get hundreds of thousands of stickers, and I had to go through that whole process. Does that answer a little bit? Mm-hmm. I'm definitely like any question you have about where you're at now or like right after college, like what to do. I definitely, I struggled right after college. Obviously, like I keep saying today, it's a little different. You have a lot of access to information and a lot of ways to contact people. But I'm definitely down to answering those questions too, because I was definitely lost when I graduated college. Because then you're like, well, I'm done. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What's my direction?
Do you have a favorite client?
So a favorite client that I worked with previously, currently my favorite client is me, myself, and I. I don't want to work for anybody else. My favorite client as of late has been Fish, the band, just because they treat me really well. They let me do what I want. They hire me because of my art style, and they pay well. A lot of people in the band industry don't pay well, so. But yeah, I'm lucky enough that I'm my largest client. I don't do freelance work anymore. I just say no. It doesn't. That's the biggest thing about when I started doing those markets is learning the value of what this design is. And it's not even necessarily what anybody else is going to tell you what the worth of this design is. It's what the customer decides the worth of that design is. So to all of us, be like, oh, this is cool, whatever. I'll pay you $500 for that design. If I would have done that, I would have missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales on that one design. And I didn't learn that value until going to markets, and people would buy it over and over and over again. So now I've been selling that for 5 years probably about, and it continues to sell more and more and more. It's my own design. Nobody else owns it. Nobody else has rights to it. And if you want to work for yourself and sell products of your own, you're never going to know what the value, the true value of your work is until you go out there and start selling it to people, because they're going to let you know right away. When you start, your parents are going to buy your stuff. Your friends are going to buy your stuff. But that's going to end. And then you need to have real people that don't know who you are buy stuff. So yeah. Whoever first.
Well, we would see the steps right after college, and stuff like that. For you, how long was that gap before you were at least doing some stuff and you a little paid, whatever it was, at the end of school for you?
So that's a good question, because that's another kind of big point that I like to point out, because I'm 43. I didn't really start to get quote unquote successful, whatever that means to you, until my late 30s. I had done a lot of design work and stuff in my 20s and worked for a lot of different companies, but I had a regular job. That's how I was paying my bills. Art, creative stuff wasn't paying my bills. I think the biggest thing, sorry, you're asking, I just started ranting.
No, you go.
So the biggest thing for me, right after college, I guess the point I was trying to say is you don't, especially now when we can just watch people's social media, you see people and you automatically assume that they're successful and they're making all this money, or they're living this life making the art. That's really hard to do. Anything creative is really hard to make a living at that. And when I say make a living, there's different levels obviously, and it's kind of whatever you want and whatever your lifestyle is, but there's just paying the bills. That's a living. So if that's what you want, you can do that. Or there's just paying the bills and having money to live a life. So it's you kind of get to decide like what you want to do. Now, when you're young, maybe you're single, you don't have family, you don't, well, not family, but you don't have kids. Like, take the risks, make the jumps. Like, anything that you fail at when you're younger like that, it's not going to affect you in the long run. Like, it's try everything, take those big risks, move somewhere different. Like, I mean, now it's a little different because it's so interconnected, but like, I wish I would just move to California and like, I would have met so many people right away. Like, living back, at least back then, Denver, Colorado was it's kind of an island. There wasn't a lot of creative stuff going on, a lot of creative jobs to get. So yeah, take risks when you're young. There's not a lot of like, there's more rewards for the risks you take than there's going to be downsides, especially when you're young, you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Like, that's the time to put it out there, take the risk, move to a different place, be somewhere you've never been. Any other questions?
You mentioned like social media and Instagram and stuff. How do you kind of like leverage or use that with your business?
So currently, before, like, now I'm lucky enough to have Tyler help make content all the time, so I work for me. But before that, I was just posting it every day. I think a lot of times you can be the best artist in the world or creator, whatever you're making. But if you're not letting anybody know you're doing your artwork, you basically don't exist. Like, I know it's terrible to say, but like, the whole thing of like doing creative things is to let other people know you're doing those creative things. And like, I'm not the best artist in the world. There's people that are way better artists than me, but they're not doing the business side. They're not doing the social media side. They're not putting themselves out there. And they're sitting, in a room creating something awesome, but like, they're just not showing anybody that work. So that's the thing with social media is, obviously there's a million different ways to do social media, whether it's tutorials, whether it's talking about your life. Like, you just kind of have to decide what avenue you want to go down, if it works for what you're trying to do. You need to post every day. You need to let people know who you are. Like, if you watch any of our content on my feed, we usually post artwork and then videos, but it's like, I let people know about my life and who I am so they can connect to me. Because this day and age, there's a million people doing art, there's a million people doing social media, more than that, billion. But people want to know who people are. Like, if you're just looking at like a picture of my art, like, that doesn't tell you anything about who I am. It just adds another level of people to connect to you and want to be interested in your life. But social media, you need to do it every day. Like, I know it's a pain in the butt. It gets old. But like, this day and age, especially with how algorithms work, like, if you don't post, you just disappear. And if you want to take it seriously, like, you need to show your work. You need to have a website. You need to have a portfolio. And it needs to look professional because there's a million different ways now for anybody to make a website that looks half-assed or decent. But there's a million ways to make awesome websites as well. And you want to have an awesome website that shows your work, shows your direction, what you're about, tell who you are. But yeah, social media, leverage it as much as you can. Do everything. I don't know if you guys like TikTok. I'm 43. That thing is, right now, that's the best bang for your buck as far as the algorithm, just because it's not all throttled down yet. Obviously, that'll happen at some point, and they'll start charging and everything, just like Instagram does. But go out, you got nothing to lose. You're gonna do it. You'll see if it works. Another thing is that don't expect immediate success. That does happen for 1% of those people, and great for them. But that doesn't happen for most of us. It's a long process. It can happen real quick, like I said, but for the most part, like I said, I'm 43. My journey took me 20 years, and then basically until I got into my 30s, I was 33 when I finally got my first in-house real art job. It takes time. It takes perseverance. You shouldn't get discouraged if it's really what you want to do. If it's something that you really want to do, you're going to keep doing it because, for me, drawing and creating is what else am I going to do? So I always just kept doing it in the background and putting myself out there. And then eventually I got my break. Don't get discouraged about, the process and the time. There's going to be lots of time where you're broke or you wish you had got this better project. But if you're pushing yourself and you're actually creating and learning new tools and pushing yourself further, you will succeed if you're doing those things, But it can suck. It can suck. It can be lonely and it can suck and it can be miserable and your family can not believe in you, or your friends cannot believe in you. Like, I mean, for a long time when I was working in the construction industry, like, people would be like, what's your degree? And I'd be like, I have a bachelor in fine arts. And they're like, what do you do with your degree? I'm like, I'm delivering construction equipment. Like, I would just stop talking about my art degree because I was just like so over having to like get the eye rolls and like people like, oh. But I was always working on it in the background, and I didn't know that this was going to happen, but like I was pushing myself forward and like pushing myself a direction. Like for me, it was either work a regular job that I hated my whole life or continue to pursue something I loved in the background until it did work out.
So you mentioned quite a bit of your production design as well.
Yes.
For product management and all that. For your early designs, what was the trial and error that you went through for all of that?
As far as the production or like picking what to sell?
A little bit of both.
So like I said, as far as the production of things, I was lucky enough to work at a company. I keep saying this because I'm 43, but it was harder back then to find places to make products. But I actually worked at a company that we made products, so I got all the connections to companies that made products. So as far as the production side, and that's a little bit why I feel like I'm able to do this too, is like I learned the whole back end of the production side, and a lot of creative people don't ever learn that side. And the more you can be knowledgeable back end the business production, the more successful you're able to be because you're able to kind of create your own things, you know where to get it. So I was able to do that through learning through about 4.5 years of working at a company. And then as far as like what designs to pick and like that's hard because it's especially when you're doing something like where I'm doing, it's like I don't have an art director. Nobody's telling me what to do. I kind of have to self, which I don't even really do. I kind of use social media for that now. Post something, if it doesn't get any likes, then no, nobody likes it. But that's also not also a harbinger if your work's good or not either. So for me, as far as selling products, the best way to know is to actually go out in the real world, do markets, try to get your stuff in stores and see if people buy it, because that's the ultimate judge if you're trying to do commercial art like I do. If it sells, then it's good. Like, as simple as that sounds, and break it down, like obviously I love doing it, it's a creative process, but like the real world, our life is currently run by money. Until that changes, we need to make money. And if you want to do commercial art, the point of doing commercial art is to sell it. I love it getting out there. I love seeing it everywhere. That's really why I like commercial art, because it's like my favorite story of like seeing my art in the wild currently is I was driving down I-25. It was slow, always is. We're doing construction, right? We all know this. And a wrecker goes by, and there's a wrecked car in the back of that wrecker, and the back window of that car is one of my stickers. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's going to go to a junkyard. It's going to sit there for 100 years. And like I don't know. For me, that's like the coolest thing. But yeah, I mean, testing, if you want to sell products, testing in real life. If you're trying to sell your designs or your website design skills, it's going to be obviously a little different step, but that's having a good website, and then email people, try to be as personal as possible. But I remember when I first started, I would email like 600 people and I'd get 1 or 2 responses back. So it's definitely a numbers game. Don't be afraid of people telling you no. That doesn't mean your work is terrible. It doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. The thing about doing anything creative is it's all subjective. Some people are going to like what you do, some people aren't. It doesn't have anything to do with whether it's good or bad for the most part. Obviously, if you hear that 50 times in a row, then maybe you need a little self-reflection to look at your work. But you're going to hear no's. That's part of it. You're not going to hear yeses all the time. It's too subjective. Some people, for the most part, me doing freelance design, I got a ton of no's, and people didn't want this stuff. And then I started selling it myself, and now I have my own company. We sell, we sold millions of dollars of product. We're sold all over the United States. And it's like this, if I would have kept doing that freelance design route, people weren't hiring me enough for that. But when I started selling it myself, it took off. So there's all these different avenues to what success means. And ultimately, you have to decide what success means to yourself and not try to get too caught up in comparing yourself. Obviously, I still do this to this day. It's hard not to, obviously. You see somebody be successful. Well, not me. I'm good too, But the success is up to you. It's like, what is your success and what you want to do? You decide that. Don't let other people decide that. It's hard. A lot of people have expectations, like in society, like you should be doing this. Like, why aren't you at this level? But you know, if I would listen to that, I'd probably still be working a regular job because that's what society told me I should have done instead of being successful having my own company. Yes, sir.
How do you address copyright and or trademark?
So I have a lawyer that we hired for that stuff, and it's definitely when you start doing commercial art and your products get out there in the millions, people are going to copy your artwork and they are going to steal your stuff. I hired a lawyer team to go after all that. We've had to go after some people, cease and desist. We've had people pay us money back because they stole our designs. For the most part, you can reach out to people, and for whatever reason, you just gotta have to believe people their face value. Some people literally have no idea. They're like, I just thought this was magical art out there that I could use. You know, sometimes you have to be like, if their story sounds like, okay, well, don't use it anymore. This is mine. I own it. But yeah, so we're working on getting more of our stuff copyrighted, but my name is trademarked. A certain amount of our designs are copyrighted. It costs a lot of money to do that, so we're just doing that as we can. But yeah, we have a lawyer team. I think in the beginning, like, unless you're specifically selling products, and even at that, like I did that for many years without worrying about that stuff. It's really about kind of when you get bigger and more well known, people are going to start. It's so hard in the creative world because it's like people can have interpretations of what you do, and it's obviously your idea, but it's like I'm not the first person to create a peace sign design. I'm the first person, so it's like it's so like wishy-washy, but it's obvious when somebody takes this design and they start selling it. Like you just send a lawyer after them. And it's okay, like when you're starting off, to copy people's work. Just don't ever sell it. Don't ever pass it off as your own. Like when I was a kid, I would literally open up X-Men and like draw Wolverine over and over. You know, like copy it, learn how it's done, get better at it, but don't ever pass it off as your own, and don't ever try to sell it. But you always want to learn from people that inspire you in your own personal time, man. Just the more you do it, the more you can break down the process. Anybody else?
So you went from stickers and now you have like socks and apparel and stuff. How did that?
So when I first started doing markets, like I personally was a person, I'd never bought a sticker in my life. I didn't even realize like that was a thing. So that's another thing when you start doing markets, you can fall into like niches that you didn't know exist that are huge. So I was like doing hats and patches and enamel pins. That was like probably 5 or 6 years ago when enamel pins were huge. So I started doing that, and I was doing shows, and people were like, why don't you have stickers? Like, I want to buy stickers. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, who buys stickers? Like, everything in my life was always like, a sticker's free. You know, it's just like a cheap $1 thing. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to make stickers, like, I can't sell $1 stickers. So I found a company that makes really high quality stickers. And then I started making a couple, and like people started buying them, and I raised my prices. And like almost all the wholesale that I do, like I sell probably some of the most expensive stickers at wholesale, and that's just because I set the value of my artwork, which is nice when you work for yourself. But using a quality product is also very good. But yeah, so people started asking for stickers, so I was like, fine. I just kept making more and more and more. And I was, we were selling, markets. I was doing a couple $1,000s a weekend. And a large chunk of that was stickers, which started to I mean, I was selling hundreds and thousands. It was, I mean, we've sold it at this point. By the end of this year, in the last, there was a couple years where, I kind of did things on the side. But once we started putting everything in the books, like we've sold almost 1 million stickers. By this year, we'll sell 1 million stickers in the last 4 years. So it's this whole side of the business like I didn't even know existed initially. So there's definitely times where you can fall into something as far as a product that you didn't even know. It might even not be something that you were interested in at first. And then like, you go to these markets or you do something and somebody suggests something for you. And then you end up creating that thing. And then you're like, oh, a whole new world opens up for you. That's another thing about like, I know like right now how it's easy to email people and like DM them and everything. But for me, like everything took off when I started networking in real life with real people, because that connection is going to get you so much further than just a generic email. Obviously do that as well. You never know what can happen from that. But making in-life connections in your industry, what you want to do, is super important to this day. Like, because it's so easy for people to do the minimum thing of email and send, and like everybody's doing that. So if you can like call them, which I know is even weirder to this day, most people want to text. I don't like to call either. But calling somebody, letting them know who you are, I mean, that's so important. Definitely network in person. It's awkward at first. It's weird, but you'll get over it. And then that'll be the best thing for you, no matter if you're working at business, you're working for yourself, you're working freelance. Like, you want to network in person. Like, that's going to mean more than any connection you make just online, you know?
So to join these markets, did you have to like apply and get accepted?
Yes, so I did have to, you have to apply, and then they look at your website and you either get denied or accepted. And then the thing about markets, if you want to sell products, there's a bunch of different types. So, you know, if you're going to have to do a bunch when you start out, because they are different types of markets and different things sell better at different markets, and people are there for different reasons. Like farmers markets, quote unquote farmers markets, where they actually sell produce, which hardly anybody does, but they still call them farmers markets these days. You know, there's a ton of booths there. So like, there's people selling everything from honey to food to leather goods to, I mean, you just got to trial the different markets and see where you fit in, because some places, like I've gone there where like the weekend before I'll make $2,000 or $3,000, and then the next weekend nobody, you know, you make $50 because it's just a bad place. The weather changes, so it's like everything else. It's trial and error. You find the ones that work, and then you hone in on those. But yeah, it's definitely, you apply. But once you do one and like you kind of present yourself professionally, like those places, they're a business as well, so they want people that are going to bring people in. And so that's like, usually now when I apply, I automatically get accepted because they see that I have an online presence. I bring people in. There's no worry about, you know, what I'm doing. They just get accepted. But those first times are definitely, you either get accepted or you don't.
How much of a role does your website play in terms of selling stuff? Because you have a shop, some e-commerce.
So we ship out online orders every day that's direct to customer business. We do a lot of direct to business. So a big chunk of our business right now is direct to basically direct to business. So we have independent sales reps that work for themselves, and then they have clients that they've worked with for 10, 20, 30 years. And they're also out there trying to find new clients. So that's a lot of our wholesale orders is through our independent sales reps. And that's what a lot of doing those trade shows is about, is you go there with my sales reps, and then all their clients come there as well. And you meet everybody and write orders and let them see your brand. But yeah, so we do a lot of online, and that's like a big reason about we've been getting better about creating content and everything, is we want people to come to the website, because ultimately the main goal, like that's the long-term goal, is to have people come direct to you and buy products from you. Wholesale is awesome, and I love wholesale, but wholesale can also be very finicky. Just from 2020, I learned like REI is this amazing client, but they're a nationwide business. COVID hits, they shut down. We don't get POs anymore. We built up a whole business around this model, and then that's all gone. So like that really, you know, like we were like, that's really made me even invest, like, because I had a different website at the time. So that even made me invest in creating a better facing website to the customer and doing more direct sales on the website. Because that's a long-term goal, is like hopefully X amount of people will always come to our website, see what new products we have, and buy directly from us, because ultimately that's where we make the most margins, and that allows us to live our lives and hire people and let them have good jobs. And but yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I'll do freelance if it makes sense, but at this point it just doesn't make sense, because I could do a design and sell to them for $1,000 or $3,000, but I could sell it myself for years for way more. So at this point I just work for myself, which is awesome. It's kind of crazy to get to that point.
So a question for both of you, in terms of, you mentioned process a few times. So I'm curious if each of you has a process you kind of go through, one to do the work, so it's generating a lot of content, or for you generating a lot of product design. And if there's anything you can talk about with that, and then how do you stay inspired, how do you stay creative?
Um, so as far as staying creative, it's definitely, and being inspired is way harder now because I spend a lot of my time working on the back end of the business at this point. We're scaling and growing super fast. We've doubled every year for the last 3 years. So the back end, running the business, figuring out logistics of having thousands of pieces of merchandise has kind of taken over my life for the last couple of years. But also to that point, I washed dishes for $10 an hour in my life. I worked in construction, so that's really what drives me. I don't ever want to do that again. So if I get too down on myself, I'm like, hey man, remember when you wash dishes and cut your hand and like, was not fun, you know. I don't know if you've ever anybody's washed dishes, but that's the lowest on the totem pole. There's no respect, and you're just washing dishes all day, and it never ends. So I just kind of use a lot of inspiration from that, and I think about those times and where it is now, and I'm like, you know, go for a walk or try to go out in the wild. It's definitely harder now to do that stuff with the business, but I don't know. I've been drawing my whole life. I've been drawing before I can remember, so I just have this internal itch to always create. It's definitely harder to make time now, especially since having our child as well. It's definitely harder to make that time, but I still do make that time. Now I'm lucky where I had probably designed about 1,000 images in between like going to part-time jobs and like starting this. So like I have quite the backlog of designs built up as well. And that's another thing too, like don't get rid of your old work. Like keep that stuff on hard drives. Like you never know, like some old design that I did 10 years ago that I think is terrible, doesn't really matter. Somebody else loves it and we can sell a ton of those. So keep your old work, whether it inspired you to do a new piece or you just never know what can come from your old work. So it's not trash or garbage just because it's old. You know, you can look back on that and sometimes find some inspiration. But it's also nice, like, I mean, I'm definitely like, I like to do stuff and be like, okay, I'm moving on to the next thing. But you can definitely find inspiration in old work. It doesn't have to just disappear. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler, do you have any, you know, you help create a lot of the content, right? So basically a lot of the promotion, I assume, right? You were talking about that content for the site to drive people. Are there any tips you can share for your process?
So I would say I'm definitely not orthodox by any means as far as content creation, because I mean, being like my age, like 24, and growing up with all the social media just being like thrown at us, you just see everything from professional ads on TV to like stupid YouTube videos and like Instagram and TikTok and Vine when that was around, even just like crunch that more. So like being able to see what you can like portray in such a short amount of time definitely changes things. And also, I would say like it's really good to be professional looking and polished and all that. Like definitely have that side of things like locked down. But then once you have that, like he was saying, like showing kind of who you are with like your products and like getting people that sense of like the personality and like the sense of community of like where we work. You can add some humor to that or some kind of laid back like mentalities to it and just kind of give people that sense of community, because I know when I'm watching my favorite YouTube channels, like whether it be tutorials or whatever it may be, like it's cool, the actual info is all well and good, but then you see them hanging out and like their friends and there's like a sense of community, so that I feel like speaks to people and that makes them want to buy from you or makes them want to hire you. So sometimes it's good to be really serious and professional, but at the same time to not take yourself too seriously after a certain point, because then you're kind of locked into that. So like when I'm making videos, sometimes if it's like a promo for one of our products that we're launching, it can be really serious, but if it's just like a reel or a TikTok for that day, like I'll do something that's just funny and stupid because people like to see both sides of it and know that you're actually like real humans instead of just a bunch of robots working in the warehouse. So it's definitely kind of,
And especially when we're making products, like it gets old just every day. Be like, buy this, buy this, buy this. Here's the thing, buy this. But like, cool, you know, and after that, you know, you got to do that to live. But like, if you don't come up with something a little more creative than that, like, if people are only going to be interested in so long, so like you can look at our Instagram, like we just posted a funny one yesterday. It's like we try to do serious, but we try to show people that like we're having fun and like doing fun things, and it's humorous. It's not just product. Like that's just not interesting, you know. Like in the long run, that's a really that would bore me to death if that's all we did, you know.
It's just good to mix things up, I think. Yeah. Like,
And also, if you're creating a ton of content, like it doesn't have to be precious. Like when you post something online, unless it goes viral, that thing lives for a few days. Maybe people come back and watch it a year later, but it's not precious. Just make it, move on, create something else. Like it doesn't have to be super polished when you're starting out. You know, it doesn't have to be.
if you're trying to impress or like get accepted into something like RAI, like as making it as professional as you can, like given your equipment and skills, then definitely go for that because you want to come off professional. But then once you're established and people kind of know what you're about product-wise, then you can kind of let that personality come back into things. And like not every video we post features like product placement. We're not always like wearing our stuff, but people know that we're like real human beings, and you know you're supporting other people when you buy from us. So it's like kind of a tighter sense of community.
Yes.
Yeah, and to add to that, this even applies to big name like A-listers, like on like Weird Al's YouTube channel. I've occasionally seen some silly 30-second videos of like him with like a floating orb trick or taking literally that stop look both ways little prompt and stuff and just turning it like into this dad joke. So and like even that brings a sense of realism to Weird Al. And,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to watch the same 30-second to a minute clip every day. That's boring, right? Yeah. Yes, sir.
I guess 2 questions. First is, so for you personally, like your specifics, like when you make a design and you're, or like you're pulling an old one out or whatever it is, what's your workflow look like?
So I've been using Photoshop for like 3 years at this point. I use Photoshop. My process used to be was draw, sketch, refine that sketch, scan it in the computer. I don't sketch anymore. Like I've been, doing digital artwork and drawing for all of my life. I don't need to sketch anymore. I don't need to lay it out. Like I just open up a blank sheet, start drawing, try to have a general idea. But like at this point, I know what I can do, what to do, so I don't have to worry about like the ideation part as far as like the actual like sketching it out. But yeah, I used to sketch and then draw, scan it in, and then use Photoshop. Now I just open up a blank file and start creating. I just started using an iPad and Procreate. Procreate's awesome. If you guys haven't used that, I'm sure a lot of you have. Photoshop, Illustrator is awesome, depending on what you want to do. Illustrator is kind of the industry standard for everything. Get real good at that if you're into drawing or creating. But I like Photoshop. I've used it forever. So even on this this design here that looks like it was probably done in Illustrator, I did that in Photoshop with like the pen tool. So that's my process currently. And then keep trying new things. Like even for me, that's hard because I've been using Photoshop forever, and I just I can open it. I know how long it takes me to do something. So I did just start using the iPad and Procreate just to it's an awesome program, but also to do something different and use new tools just so I don't get stuck using the same tools. So make sure you do that as well. What was the second part? Did I answer?
I was more of a curious question. What's your single most successful product, you'd say?
So as far as sales, numbers, stickers, we've sold almost 1 million of those things. After that, drinkware has been really good, mugs. But we sell a decent amount of, our fanny packs that we just started doing. Those have been super hot the last couple of years. Hats are super. We just got back into. We're just getting deeper into apparel. Hats sell really well. I'm in the outdoor industry, so obviously hats, apparel. We just kind of started doing that. So I don't really have numbers on that, but with hats, we just ordered like 13,500 units. Like we're just like it's hats are a lot, but stickers currently, as far as volume, stickers like we sell so many of those. It's absolutely crazy. Like I still look at our online orders and like sometimes people order $200 worth of stickers and I'm just like, wow, like it's so wild. You know, you're like you just don't think that is even out there, but it is.
I mean, it looks pretty cool, just saying.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was the things. Like, I just tried to make a nicer product as far as the sticker quality. Like I said, they're all weather. You can put them on a car, a lot more cooler. They're dishwasher safe. So, like, making a little better quality product also helps when you're getting to the wholesale game because a lot of people will take the cheapest product possible because they can make the most margin on that product. Whereas my idea is that if I take nicer products and make high quality products, like more people will come back to the brand. But ultimately, you know, a $5 mug versus a $30 mug, there's a big difference in the quality of those two products. And you can do either one. Neither one is right or wrong. But this is a game that everybody's playing. And then the game over here doing high quality products is a game that a lot less people are playing. And it's, I just feel like people can actually use those products and actually cherish those products and use them over and over, where it's not just like a cheap giveaway thing. They're like, oh, that's nice, and it goes in your closet or in a drawer that nobody ever looks at again, you know? But you can do either. It's definitely not right or wrong. I mean, Walmart is, you know, they're the biggest company in the world, and they sell the cheapest stuff. So you can go either way. It's up to you. You can be successful either way.
You said when you were younger, you were into like comic books and stuff. Have you ever thought of drawing your own like comic books and stuff?
I mean, if I would have continued like learning human anatomy and keeping up on that, yes. But now, I would need to. I would need to practice a lot more. No, not now. I definitely like I made all kinds of comics myself and like Star Trek comics and like. You know, like I was all about it then. That was the kind of only focus I had. Like I didn't really have any other influences besides like cartoons. But yeah, no. This thing that I'm doing now is like what I really love in the direction that I'm going, and I want to just maximize what we're doing and make it for the long haul. That's the hard thing too about like doing wholesale stuff is that like you know you can be hot for 5 years and people love your stuff and you're in every store, but stores want to sell products. While you can have the coolest thing and it's awesome, most time they're looking for something new. They want the newest thing. They want, like in the resort industry, it's a little different, but that's hard in wholesale too, because like people, you can love you and like want your thing, but like you see big brands come and go, like, oh, they're really hot, like right now, and then they disappear. So that's why you definitely want to build like your own personal brand so that people connect with you and come back to you and are interested in what you're doing. And it's not just, oh, I saw this product at X place and that's why I bought it. Like, you know, obviously that's going to happen as well. But if you want something to last a long time, they need to know who you are and connect with you so they come back directly to you and know who you are. Otherwise, you know, you can get real hot for 5 years and then wholesale gets tired of you and you're done, you know? Anything else?
Have you made a coloring book?
I have not. I've thought about that too. I'm sure at some point we'll make one. Well, I mean, the amount of products I try and make, like every year I try to do like a couple of different random things just to see how they are gonna drop. Like this year we're doing like a custom rug that's really different. We're doing some custom towels. You know, just doing some stuff that's out of the normal just to see if they're popular or not. And like that's the fun thing about where we are now is we do have the capital to take chances and just try things out. Whereas in the beginning, it's a lot harder because you need to sell those products. Also in the beginning, like if you do want to sell products, don't go deep. Don't buy a ton of different, like even if you're not making money on the products, the whole point is to see if people want to buy those things. So you just buy the minimum amount. Don't go deep. Don't get a credit card. Like I did that a couple times. Like it's not, you know, you get in trouble financially and then you're stuck in the whole loop again. So in the beginning, just make the product. You can even like now, like you don't even have to make the products. Like there's sites like I think Printful is one, where like they'll digital, you know, as far as apparel, they'll DTG, they'll ship it and everything. You make a website and it looks like you have all the product and then they ship it out. Like you can even try that too. So there's a million different ways if you want to sell products now to less risk adverse for yourself.
When you were first like starting out and getting out of college and making like that big backlog of work, did you always kind of see yourself having like this nature type of style that you have, or what was it?
No, that finding your style is very hard. Like, how do you tell somebody to find their style? Like, I feel like it's just over time type of thing, and trying a million different things and seeing what your influences are and taking a little bit from that. But no, I would say I drew very different. I still drew like kind of thicker lines, but my style has changed and evolved a ton from when I was 20 to now. Like, when I was doing band merch design, it wasn't even really, because you're doing photo manipulation, you are doing some original concepts, but a lot of that is just, you're doing the artwork that they want to buy. You're kind of not doing your own thing. So it's a bunch of different styles and everything that I was doing. I didn't come up till probably, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, where I kind of started on this nature path. Like, I always liked going outside. Like, I grew up on a farm. I live in Colorado. Like, I love going out and doing all that stuff. So, like, I always loved nature. I just didn't know that, like, that could be the focus of my artwork. And then when I started, doing that, that's when it got a little popular. So then I kind of developed my style around that and grew it. But I'm to the point now, like, I have a couple different styles. Like, when you open that package, you can see there's that bold line style. And then, like, the alien head that's in there kind of has, like, a more illustrated style. And, like, once you draw thousands of things in one style, you're kind of like, I need to do something else. Like, or I need to find a new way to do that thing to keep it interesting. So I'm definitely to that phase now where I'm, like, trying to, like, what's the next step? What's the next direction? How do I change it up a little bit to keep it interesting for yourself, too? Like, that's, it can get to the seem like where you're making widgets. And then at that point, you're kind of like, it does get hard to do, but yeah, it's a never-ending pursuit of developing a style and changing that style and getting tired of that style and finding a different thing, and then also just finding the thing that you're interested in and like diving deep on that and finding where it can take you, because there's just so many possibilities now. You just got to kind of figure out. And I don't even know if it's like a conscious decision. Like, I was just putting myself out there and like doing all these things, and then you bump into this person and this person. And this person kind of is like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, it's definitely, like I said before, it's a spider web of getting to where I got now. It's definitely not a straight line at all. I don't know if that answers or helps you out, but style's hard. Like, style's so like what? I don't even know how do you create. Like, I don't know how to create a style. It kind of just happens unless you're directly copying somebody else. Then you know where it comes from. But even then, like, you're gonna change just because you are who you are. So. Everybody has their own little take on their style.
So you mentioned a lot, it seems like, the idea that not always knowing, and you have to try things to figure it out, and constantly like taking that risk to figure out the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think that has been for you and maybe in general for creatives?
Obviously, the older you get, the more responsibilities you have. That gets harder and harder to take those risks. But it's super important. Like, I don't know. I mean, anybody that you guys look up to or admire or love their work, like, they probably took a lot of risks and failed a bunch of different times to get to where they are. Nobody just gets to where they are right away. So taking risks is super important. Trying different things is super important. Making yourself uncomfortable is super important. I think if you want to be more than, I guess, whatever standard success is, you're going to want to take as many risks as possible. Because, it's the saying, but no risk, no reward. So, and especially when you guys are young now, like, now's the time to take all the risks because there's really not a lot of blowback. And when you're your guys' age, like, the worst thing that happens is you go live back with mom and dad and you still get a house and food every day. Like, that's a pretty nice bottom, So take all the risks you can now. Like, you're not going to, in the long run, it doesn't matter what somebody thinks about what you're trying, So take those risks. Definitely take them now and try those things you never thought you wanted to try or would. No, it's easier said than done. It's not. It's, there's obviously a lot of other things in every single one of your lives pushing you to do different things or influences. But definitely, the more risk you take when you're younger and have less responsibility, there's really not a lot of blowback to taking those risks. And it gets way harder now. Like if I just decided tomorrow, like I want to crochet for the rest of my life. Well, now I've got employees and a wife and a kid, and they're gonna be like, "What are you doing, man?" Like, So, yeah. Anything else I can answer or give a little direction? Hopefully, it's been helpful.
Yeah, you have a question, Tyler. That's right. Yeah. So how would you just come into work for this company? What was your kind of like path that led you here?
So I was living in Fort Collins, I still am, and my other job is I work at a skate shop, just a local mom and pop shop. I love skating, so that's kind of what brought me in there. And then wasn't getting enough hours there, so I was like, oh, I should find another job. Absolutely abhor restaurant work. I've worked in restaurants, and I'm like, give me anything that will make it so I don't have to go back to a restaurant. So I was looking on Indeed, and they had an ad on there that just said production, and I was like, that could mean anything. Like, especially for a sticker company, I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's like graphic production or warehouse production, like manual work. So hit them up, got the interview. They were pretty straightforward. They're like, you're gonna be packing stickers and shipping them out. Nothing too crazy, but then we'll see after a while like where that can go. So I was just manually, like every sticker you see in an individual pack, there's somebody who puts it in there and staples it. Well, not with the new ones, but with our old ones. So I was just sitting there doing hundreds of thousands of stickers, and I think they were thinking about moving me up to like a shipping manager type deal, like a little bit of a step up from there. And I was thinking about when I was back in high school, doing all the video classes, and like always done music production too. Kind of those are my two main passions. So I kind of extended myself a little bit and told Jimmy, I'm like, hey, I know that content creation and social media presence is like a must-have nowadays for any company. So if that interests you at all, I would love to get back into the video work. And like, I was super upfront. I was like, I didn't go to school or anything for this. I've just always done it on my own time. And he was down for it. And I was lucky enough to get a bunch of new equipment to make it like the proper polished look, because I was just on my Mac at home. It's like 4 gigs of RAM, and as soon as I put anything that's 4K into that, it's like done. So he got me new equipment. I was super grateful for that. Like all of this stuff you see here is from him, so he really set me up to be able to produce like professional looking stuff, because when you have something in your mind, you like want it to come out a certain way, and then comes time to actually sit down and edit it and nothing is looking like your vision, it's really discouraging. So having good equipment definitely helps, but it was pretty much just like a love and an interest for video and music and sound, which goes right into video editing too. Being lucky enough to have somebody who's like willing to put me on that little platform and like help me learn, because like I said, I was up front, I'm like, I didn't go to school or anything for this, but I love learning about it. I always want to do something with it. So definitely grateful that he was able to extend that kind of opportunity to me. And yeah, it's just trying a lot of different stuff.
I think, being like your kind of story is like you took a job at a place, definitely not the job you wanted, or like you're willing to like go somewhere and start low, and then let people know like what you want to do. Like you don't always have to get exactly what you want right away. Like, we didn't know when you first started that you would, transfer over to doing video, but through you working here, you're like, hey, I want to do video. And then, I was in a place where I needed somebody to do video. I was like, yeah, let's do video. So like, just having the, just letting your boss know or whoever's in charge know that you want to do other things. Like it's not going to hurt you. Like you never know where that can take. Like if he wouldn't have asked, he'd still just be packing stickers. So.
Which I still do pack stickers.
He still does that too. trying to find another person to take his job right now so he can work on this full time. But yeah, just asking. I mean, is as easy as that sounds.
Because even if you're working at like a 9 to 5, and let's say they have a web developer or content creator, and then leave that position, and then that position's open. It's like, even though it's not with like a company per se, even if it's just a local place, like that's still closer to like the kind of work that you probably want to be doing. Because like with me, I'm willing to kind of bite the bullet and pack 1,000 stickers here and there.
You've packed like over 100,000 stickers at this point.
Probably. It's not always going to be like every minute of every day is what you want to be doing, but there was definitely a lot of like after hours video work because we would have to focus on the orders first, and just like teaching myself tons of stuff. I mean, I obviously know you guys are in school right now, so you're lucky to have a great teacher to show you all these different things. But for me, it was just YouTube University and just teaching myself stuff, which can go a long way.
I mean, YouTube. I mean, hey, we're in a college right now, but you can learn anything you want on YouTube. I mean, YouTube is an amazing resource. So yeah, I mean, I still use it to this day. I'm like, I forget something in Photoshop, and I'll be like, oh, just go, YouTube it. Like you can pretty much learn anything. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely wanting to learn all of it, because if you look something up and it's like a super long tutorial video or a long process, like that can kind of put a damper on things. But as long as like that passion is within you, I know it sounds cliche, but I just think about all the times I would make home videos with like my parents and my friends in high school, and I'm like, it's so much fun, and like being able to go back and look at what you've created is like such an awesome thing. So I always think about that when I'm like frustrated or doing something like that. You just kind of have to envision where you're gonna be and like the products that you've created. And I'm sure with him, like he probably didn't expect to be as successful as he is. Like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm beyond my dream. I'm beyond like the dream number I had in my mind were way beyond that. So yeah, it's crazy.
And yeah, like 2 years ago, working in a restaurant, like living at home, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. I probably should have gone to school or something. And then, sure enough.
Yesterday you were filming a duel video for our Instagram.
Yeah, that's another thing too with like, once you get established and people know that you can do super professional stuff, then that kind of gives you that little bit of leeway to mix in kind of whatever you want. Because like you said, the video we did yesterday has absolutely nothing to do with the company whatsoever, but it also gives people that sense that we like to have fun and like to take a break from work every once in a while. So
yeah,
you got to keep yourself sane for sure. You got to live a life.
Yeah. We did that out in the very cold in like 10 minutes. Like, we gotta do this. It's freezing.
You guys must have did research there. All the cuts and.
It was just a super on the fly.
Yeah. I was lucky in high school to have a really good film teacher and film analysis, so he kind of sparked that inspiration in me. So it's been really cool to finally think back of like I wish I could meet him sometime. Like anytime I'm able to ever actually talk to him, I definitely want to let him know that like how much he did for me. And I want to let him know that I'm like in a position where I'm just making content, and whether it be full-length stuff or just little TikTok stuff, like either way, it's just super fun for me. And you never really know what kind of application you're going to get into, because like he was saying, I didn't know that I was going to be doing this for this company, but as soon as I saw that it kind of that open space where it's like, hey, we could be making videos and stuff, even though it's early on in the company, that's still super important. So just putting yourself out there, even though if it's something you don't expect, it might be something that you really enjoy and really love. That's how it was for me. I definitely didn't see myself standing here filming him doing his little TED talk, but it's definitely a super fun time for me. So definitely want to do stuff that challenges yourself, but you also want to have fun with everything you do. Otherwise, it just takes away everything, and it makes it a chore to like sit down.
There's gonna be a lot of unfun stuff though too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's part of it, I mean, I just, the whole reason I started this was because I wanted to draw for a living. But, in order to get where we are, there's a lot of non-drawing stuff going on. So that's all very important too, depending on whatever you want to do. But, yeah. Any other questions? I can talk all day, so.
I was kind of curious how, and this could be for both of you, but how did the workplace get affected during COVID?
So we were in a smaller warehouse. It was probably the size of this building right here. Probably size of this room right here, I mean. And we had maybe 4 or 5 employees. But so initially, when COVID started, like it initially happened, and nobody knew if you touched the server, like it was super, like it was everything was closed down, everything shut down, so everything stopped. All of our wholesale accounts stopped. We had a stack of POs because in the resort business, everybody starts ordering like January, February for spring because that's when everybody starts going out. So we had a huge stack of POs, and it was like, but all those people canceled. Our AI stopped. Like, so it was very nervous because we had just moved into a warehouse and have employees, and everything stopped. And I was just like, okay, what are we gonna do here? But the cool thing is everybody was at home and had nothing to do. So we started shipping out hundreds of orders like every day because everybody was ordering online. So people really supported small businesses, and for those first probably like 3 to 4 months, that's how we made it, online orders. But we had to take federal the PPP program, like we had to get that to survive and pay people. So yeah, it wasn't fun, but the cool. Maybe not cool thing, but the learning moment from that was as terrible as that was, we made it through it. And that's quite the thing when you have a business to make it through a really bad time, because then you can you have a scope of things and you're like, all right, if we can make it through this, then a lot of these things that are happening right now aren't that bad, So that was the blessing of that anyways.
So you said you've been focusing more on the business side of things.
Mhm.
You said you were hired a lawyer and stuff, but is there anyone business oriented that you?
Yes, I'm definitely. I'm a creative person, terrible at math. So yeah, there's definitely. I have a bookkeeper. I have an accountant. They help me with the business side, and then I also have 2 other people in the office that help with running the day to day. As far as I have an admin person, and then we have an operations person. I have a shipping manager. And then we have production people. So I'm not literally doing every task. It would be impossible to get where we are if that was. You really have to delegate and let things go. But yeah, as far as the business side, an accountant and a bookkeeper are. If I had to do my own taxes right now, I would probably give up. It's not fun. But yeah, you just gotta work with those people, and you learn a lot. Obviously, when I first started, I had no idea about most of the taxes and all this stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But now that we're years into it, I'm learning more and more. I definitely don't know everything. You're never going to know everything. So you just got to learn from people and take bits of information and get smarter and smarter on that side of it. Because I definitely was not a business focused person before this. But now I definitely am. It's super important to running a successful business at scale is having the back end all worked out.
Keep track of everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, inventory is our biggest never-ending issue, especially with the supply chain and stuff right now. So it just kind of depends where you want to go. But if you do want to work for yourself, in the beginning it's okay to be a little here or there. But once you get established, you want to set up a business account, do everything out of that business account so you can get your proper write-offs and everything. And it also just makes your life a lot easier at tax time than mixing personal finance and business finance.
You guys partner with vendors to produce the products, is that correct, or do you produce them in-house?
No, we don't produce anything in-house. I worked in production at that company I worked at previously for 4.5 years. And it's just, if we worked in production, I would probably have to have 20 or 30 more people. Even just to print stickers, we'd probably need 5 people doing that all day, every day. So for me, I'm willing to pay a little extra to have that stuff shipped right to my location that's ready to go out, instead of dealing with all of the production side. Because we worked in a screen printing factory. If you've ever been to a screen printing shop, the steps it takes to get a screen printed on, a design printed on a shirt is crazy. You would never think all the steps it has to go through, and then all the inks and the employees and the machines and on and on and on and on. So, no, I stay out of the production side. That's a pain. That's a whole other thing I don't want to get involved with.
Yes, you have POs coming in, and you have POs that you push out.
Yes.
Well, correct? Yes.
Yep, so we're getting orders in every day. We get online orders. We just did a trade show in Denver. Our next one will be in Las Vegas. So we get all those orders that we have to fill. So yeah, we're getting them all the time now that we've been doing this kind of part of the business for like 3 or 4 years. So we have tons of return clients. It's almost springtime, so everybody's pushing all the POs to get their stuff to their parks, to their resorts, to their up in Estes Park, like stuff like that. Like all those people are loading up their shops so they can sell throughout the whole season.
It's picking up, yeah. It's
Yep.
kind of coming back, everything's opening up.
Yep.
That's awesome.
All right, cool. There's no questions, no more. I appreciate you guys letting me talk. Hopefully something was helpful. If you do have any other questions, you can always just DM me on Instagram or email me off my site. I'm more than happy to get to that. It might not be right away because I have a ton of emails, but I'll definitely try to respond. Because I know when I was your age, I just didn't have anybody to ask about a direction or what. I've lived through a little bit. Obviously, you're your teacher as well to help you out with that. But you can always email if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.
Yes, no problem. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.